Not all tank features are visible in characteristic windows. AMX-10RC is a French light tank that has plenty of various devices and traits that might not even be apparent at first, or even after a long time of playing this vehicle, because some of them are so situational that at the end of the day you end up forgetting about them anyway. By the way, what do you call AMX-10RC in the evening? PMX-10RC. This vehicle has no problems penetrating pretty much any opponent frontally, even when up-tiered. By default it has heat rounds with 350mm of penetration, but there is no point to use them for too long, as researchable APFSDS rounds are way more reliable, because they can shoot through obstacles, ricochets less, is not affected by reactive armor plates, and has very high muzzle velocity, which makes hitting distant and moving targets much easier. APFSDS rounds have slightly less penetration, but that's still enough to easily deal with any tank this vehicle can face at its 8.3 battle rating. Not all tanks at this BR even have these rounds. Despite their post-penetration damage is not too good, one-shots were very common, because almost all opponents can be penetrated frontally into their center of mass, where the round can make the most destruction. The vehicle reloads in 7.5 seconds with a screw. That, for some reason, is longer by almost 1 second compared to other vehicles using similar cannons. Almost all 105mm caliber guns in all nations have the same reload, while this tank stands out among them in a bad way by taking slightly longer to reload. The difference might not be very significant, but there are situations when 1 second makes the difference between getting another kill or dying. This vehicle often plays against tanks that have stabilizers, especially when up-tiered. So when I and the opponent saw each other at the same moment, I knew that very likely, very soon, I'm going to visit the hangar. Opponents in this game are very impatient and don't wait until my tank stabilizes. In order to destroy those tanks, I had to notice them well in advance, or remain stationary most of the battle to minimize the time when I could be caught in motion. Of course, sometimes I was fighting against tanks without stabilizers, but even then I felt at a disadvantage. If we both missed, I was probably the one who reloads longer, and I was the one who can be damaged with high caliber machine guns, something that this tank doesn't have. The armor of the AMX-10RC doesn't offer much protection. Armor is made of aluminum alloy that is less effective, and its thickness doesn't reach any serious values anywhere. I think my pay-to-win stickers protect it more than the armor itself. Any tank, SPAA or plane is dangerous from any angle. Only heavy machine gun bullets are more or less resisted when shot frontally, but even then there are weak spots that at close range can be penetrated. Paper-thin armor didn't offer any survivability, as it usually does in War Thunder. I was one-shotted most of the time. First stage ammo rack is spread all around the vehicle, so it often gets detonated, and crew members are close to each other, especially commander and gunner. They usually get knocked out together, so I was never in a situation when commander's ability to fire the cannon would be useful in practice. The best way to survive when the tank has no armor is hiding in cover, for example behind a hill. Cannon's depression of 8 degrees at first glance might look unimpressive, but the vehicle can control its suspension. So by making some manipulations with the hull, the vehicle actually can have quite good cannon's depression. I wasn't too impressed by the tank's mobility. This is a light tank, so it is faster than average, but not significantly. At least not that much to make a noticeable difference on the battlefield. Even when playing on flat maps with good terrain where technically wheeled vehicles should have an advantage, I wasn't able to get somewhere where opponents didn't expect me to be at the start of the battle. Pretty much all tanks this vehicle plays against has a decent mobility as well. The maximum speed is not even that great, 84 kph, and it takes a while to reach the maximum speed even on roads. On a good note, AMX-10RC does have a neutral steering, which is quite unusual for a vehicle without tracks. Thanks to that, it can make very sharp turns or even turn around while standing on the same spot, something that is impossible to do with a vast majority of wheeled vehicles in War Thunder. So the vehicle can comfortably drive between buildings in narrow streets without fear of getting stuck in the worst possible moment. Also, it can swim at the speed of 8 kph, though this feature is not very helpful. You don't want to end up almost immobilized in the open, and most importantly, unable to shoot accurately because of wobbling. The reverse is great. The maximum speed when moving backwards is the same as when moving forwards, 84 kph. If something goes wrong, smokescreen and reversing back as far away as possible can be a lifesaver. Smokescreen can be used twice in the direction of the turret. Also, there are a couple of modern features that are not uncommon to have at vehicles battle rating, but still, most of the tanks that have them are placed even higher. It's a laser rangefinder for those who can't hit anything, and thermal vision for those who can't see anything. Just like all light tanks, this one also has a scouting ability that makes me feel like a team player sometimes. And just like all light tanks at higher BR, it has a drone which helps to find out if there are enemies around me or I'm just standing here alone like an idiot. In arcade, the vehicle still gets one-shotted most of the time, so I had to play it very carefully and not rush into the enemy team too quickly. Considering that the vehicle accelerates much faster and there are only small maps in this game mode, it is easy to end up surrounded after holding the W button for too long. I couldn't find a way to use vehicle speed to my advantage. I was mostly standing behind cover, shooting everyone I saw for a while, and moving forward only when the area was cleared. Scouting ability was especially helpful to stay aware of enemy locations. As long as they are scouted, the name tags do not disappear, and I knew that it is not safe to move out of the cover. I was only using APFSDS rounds because they can be shot through bushes and fences, which is especially handy in arcade when shooting into the name tag without direct line of sight. But also it is the fastest round, so I could be shooting from another end of the map and opponents didn't have time to hide behind cover, while I usually was able to hide quickly enough just before slower projectiles covered all that distance and reached me. Because of name tags, I felt very unsafe in arcade, so I spent way more time behind cover compared to realistic game mode. This vehicle has plenty of various gimmicks that doesn't affect the gameplay too much: neutral steering, swimming, controllable suspension, but I would prefer to have the same reload as others or stabilized cannon, something that really affects combat performance. I would rate AMX-10RC 5 waterproof windows out of 10. It worked best for me when I could keep a long distance between me and opponents, because then I could have an advantage over some vehicles thanks to the laser rangefinder and very fast APFSDS rounds. But if the opponent has those things as well, which is not unusual, especially when up-tiered, AMX-10RC becomes just like a regular tank with longer reload and vulnerable even to small caliber guns.